What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Legitical Response. I cover political news, and I've got some more blatant hypocrisy coming from the United States. It's like that they take these actions on the national stage, and when you sit back and think about it, it's like, wow, that's arrogant. Do they know how hypocritical they're being here? It's crazy to watch some of this stuff. It's like they do it so often that you got to conclude that no, they don't know that they're being very, very hypocritical. The hypocrisy is on an insane level with this. Let's get into it. Check this out, y'all. The U.S. and Britain accuse Iran of sending Russia missiles to use against Ukraine. How ironic is that? These people are like, you better not send missiles to Russia. Huh? Wait, hang on. We're sending hundreds of billions of dollars to help Ukraine fight their war for them. Right? I've got another article that will sew this up nice and clean when we get to the end of it. So make sure and stay tuned for that. But let's get into this because these people are crazy, y'all. Just outright crazy. The United States and Britain formally accused Iran on Tuesday of supplying short-range ballistic missiles to Russia to use against Ukraine, announcing new sanctions on Moscow and Tehran before a joint visit to Kyiv by their top diplomats. Right, so they're accusing them, oh, you're helping Russia. You better not be helping Russia. And then they go directly to Kyiv to go help Ukraine. This is some of the most hypocritical actions that I've seen coming from the United States government, as a matter of fact, because it's blatant, and it seems like they have no idea that they're doing it. They have no idea, because they accuse China of the same thing. They issued sanctions on China for helping Russia. They're allies, for crying out loud. It's like, what are you talking about? And just like they can't see that the United States helping Ukraine, because we're not allies, as a matter of fact. They're not in NATO yet. Although they're pushing real hard for that, and I think that's one of the dumbest things to do, right? Like, I understand the reason for NATO's existence, right? Like, I had a guy in the comments, shout out to you, by the way. I had a guy in the comments the other day, I forget his name, sorry. It kind of break down everything. It was this really, really long, it's almost as long as a news article, as to why NATO exists and why it should still be there. And look, I totally get it. I get it a lot. And hey, look, I understand. I don't necessarily like NATO, and I think all that can be done with a treaty instead of an entire organization that has a $3.8 billion budget, which that was the one and only thing he got wrong. He told me that their budget was in the millions of dollars, and it's not. It's in the $3.8 billion is their actual budget, but outside of that, everything else he said was pretty much correct. Some of it was opinion, and I don't agree with some of that opinion, but I understand the reason for its existence, right? It hasn't outlived its usefulness. It does a service. I don't think it's worth the $3.8 billion, and once again, like I said, I think they could reorganize the treaty and get rid of the organization and still keep everything basically the same. That's my opinion, though. Not sure if that would actually work out. Could be slightly naive. Not really sure. Haven't put that much thought into it, but yes, Ukraine is not part of NATO. They're not one of our allies. We don't have a defense pact with Ukraine, for crying out loud. It's like, so we're helping Ukraine and then griping at these other countries for them helping Russia, when those other countries are allies with Russia. That would be like Russia sanctioning the United States for Britain, for us helping Britain fight the Iraq War or something like that. Right? Like, it makes absolutely no sense when you think about it like that. Just reverse everything. That's what I do that with a lot of stuff. Like this, especially crap like this, because when you reverse, you turn the tables. Right? Once again, like I said, this is the reason I don't care for Russia invading Ukraine, because it's like, what if we invaded Mexico? That would be like Russia sanctioning us for invading Mexico if we had what we thought was a legitimate reason to do so. Right? Did Russia sanction us for invading Iraq, for crying out loud? The President of the United States lied to everybody about weapons of mass destruction, justifying our invasion into Iraq. Did anybody sanction us for that? Now, I was a kid at the time, so I don't remember. I was young. Talking about the second Iraq war. I wasn't really a kid. I was in my teens, but you get it, right? I didn't pay attention to politics whatsoever, so I don't know if they did or not. But that's what this is like. If Russia and China sanctioned us for invading Iraq. Maybe they did and I just don't know about it. Let me know down in the comment section. But let's keep going. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, speaking alongside British Foreign Secretary David Lammy during a visit to London, said Iran had ignored warnings that the transfer of such weapons would be a profound escalation of the conflict. He told reporters that dozens of Russian military personnel had been trained in Iran to use the FATH 360 close-range ballistic missile system, which has a maximum range of 75 miles. Russia has now received shipments of these ballistic missiles and will likely use them within weeks in Ukraine against Ukrainians, Blinken said. So, that's, yes, of course they will. The supply of Iranian missiles enables Russia to use more of its arsenal for targets that are further from the front line. So what? They're conducting their war however the hell they want to, right? It's no longer just Russia invaded Ukraine. It stopped being that, right? It stopped being an illegal invasion, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because all invasions should be illegal, regardless. But, yes, Ukraine invaded Russia, for crying out loud. So, at that point, I really stopped caring about Ukraine's sovereignty at that point. Because, yeah, sure, they were invaded by Russia, but that doesn't mean that you can just go right on and invade. Hey, I laughed when I heard that. Go right ahead. I don't want to help them do that, though. They have every right to do that, and I have no right to butt in. But I do have a right to say, if the United States sends them weapons, I wish there was somehow I could sanction the United States government for sending weapons to Ukraine. If I could, I would. Most certainly. The West's allegations about the missile transfers come as the Kremlin is trying to repel Ukraine's surprise offensive, which has claimed hundreds of square miles of territory in Russia's Kursk region. The accusations could embolden Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to further ramp up pressure on the U.S. and other allies to allow Ukraine to use Western-supplied missiles to strike deep inside Russia and hit sites from which Moscow launches aerial attacks. Iran's foreign ministry denies providing ballistic missiles to Russia, the semi-official ISNA news agency reported. So, who are we to believe here? Is it propaganda or is it the truth? We don't know, because now they're denying it. Of course, do you trust Iran? No. Don't trust them as far as you can throw them, which you can't throw them at all. So, yeah, I don't trust that, but, my trust in the American government is kind of on sketchy ground right now, because they constantly lie, and they're being very hypocritical with this, because once again, we're supplying ballistic missiles, or at least we're supplying lots and lots of weaponry to Ukraine. It might not be ballistic missiles, but, yeah, they're probably supplying ballistic missiles, because we do supply short-range ballistic missiles for sure. I've heard reports on that, so, yeah. I don't know who to believe. I ain't gonna take Iran's word for it. That's for damn sure. I ain't gonna take Russia's word for it either. Publishing wrong and misleading reports about transferring Iranian weapons to some countries is merely an ugly propaganda and lie aimed at hiding illegal, massive size weaponry support by the U.S. and some Western nations for genocide in the Gaza Strip. It quoted ministry spokesperson Nazar Kanini as saying, oh, there we go. Now you got Iran playing some whataboutery over here. Well, what about them? What about Gaza? Yeah, we're not talking about that right now. Yeah, go on with that. Get on out of here. Who cares about that? Yeah, we're supplying weapons to Israel. And I don't think we should be doing that either. You damn right. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Iran supplying missiles to Russia. Like, and what business is that of ours, by the way? Like, seriously. The US, UK, and other Western allies are pressing for a ceasefire to end the devastating war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza and avoid attacks from Iranian proxies in the region escalating into a broader war. Yeah, it don't seem like that's what they're doing. But I'm not there, so I don't know. Britain, France, and Germany announced new sanctions Tuesday against Iran and Russia, calling the missile transfers a direct threat to European security. The penalties include the cancellation of air services agreements with Iran, which will restrict Iran Air's ability to fly to the UK and Europe. Wow, see, there you go. You got Britain, France, and Germany announcing sanctions over these, calling it a threat to European security. I don't, yeah, okay, you're riding a fine line there, buddy, because, yeah, Ukraine technically is kind of in Europe. It's kind of on the line there, but you know what they mean by that. They're talking about NATO, but that's no threat to NATO whatsoever. Like, do we really think that Russia is going to invade NATO? Like, I hear this all the time from people. Oh, you must be crazy to think that if we just allow Putin to take over Ukraine, that he's not going to roll into NATO. Yes, that's exactly what I think. Because it would be the most stupidest move by a world leader that he could ever make. Right? I mean, that's the dumbest thing. That's like going to lay down in a damn 10-foot tall ant pile. Just going and laying down in it. And just staying there for a little while. That's what that would be like for Russia. You're going to die. You're going to get eliminated. They know, Putin knows, and the United States know, if it ever comes to a full-on conflict, that, yeah, Russia doesn't exist anymore. At least, not how it is. And, you know, the United States is going to take some damage as well. Not going to say it's not going to exist, but it's a very good possibility that the entire northern hemisphere is destroyed. It's a very good possibility. So I don't think Putin is that stupid to invade a NATO country. Like, seriously. And anybody that says otherwise, they're just an idiot. They're just fear-mongering. That's all they're doing, is fear-mongering. Because, once again, think about this logically. If Russia invades NATO, that triggers Article 5. It's going to be full-on conflict, which is going to become existential for Russia. And they already said that they would definitely use their ICBMs in the chance of, in the event of an existential threat. So, yes, that would mean the destruction of Russia. That would mean the destruction of Europe. That would mean the destruction of the United States. So, yeah, I don't think he wants to do that, and for no apparent reason. That would be no apparent reason for him to just invade NATO. Like, when these people actually get out there and start spouting this garbage, like, what's the underlying cause? What's the casus belli for Russia to invade NATO? Let me know that, and then we can have a debate. Give me the casus belli, and then we'll talk about it. But until then, you just saying that, oh yeah, you think Putin's not going to invade NATO, is garbage. It's just outright garbage. But I didn't expect to go this long, so check this out. This is the other article I was talking about, y'all. Biden administration sends Congress long-awaited Ukraine strategy report, sources say. Wait a minute now. The United States isn't at war with Ukraine. Why did we want Biden to give us a strategy report? Like, what's our strategy? The United States. What are we going to gain from this? That's interesting, considering what we just talked about. U.S. President Joe Biden's administration has sent Congress a classified report on its strategy for the war in Ukraine, 3 sources said on Monday, months after a June deadline mandated a multi-billion-dollar spending bill lawmakers passed in April. Now, I covered that article when that bill passed. Yeah, I remember that specifically. And I talked about it then. Like, why? I understand, but hang on here. What do we need a strategy for? We don't need a strategy for the Ukraine war, for crying out loud. What we want is accountability. We want an itemized list of everything our tax dollars were spent on. Everything. That's what we want. We don't need a strategy for how Ukraine is going to beat Russia somehow. Because I don't think there is a strategy for Ukraine to beat Russia currently. Not without help, at least. A congressional aide said the long-awaited report had reached lawmakers on Monday, and they had not yet had a chance to review it. 2 other sources requesting anonymity to discuss a classified matter confirmed that it had been delivered. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Congress has approved nearly $175 billion of aid and military assistance for Ukraine and allied nations in the 2.5 years since Russia's full-scale invasion. After months of delay, the Republican-led House of Representatives passed a $95 billion supplemental spending bill in April that included $61 billion in funding for Ukraine, as well as billions for Israel, civilians in conflict zones around the world, and to counter communist China in the Indo-Pacific. Yes, how lovely is that, and how hypocritical is the United States government? We have a strategy that we came up with for how Ukraine and what they're going to do when they beat Russia, and we're telling Iran not to send missiles to Russia. Huh? It blows my mind that these people, they're sanctioning Iran for this as well. Like, that's another thing too. I thought we already had the most sanctions on Russia that we could ever put. Right? I remember Joe Biden coming out. I've covered at least 3 or 4 different stories of Joe Biden stating that we're putting the most extreme sanctions we can put on Russia. What? How? Can you do that? Well, you put these sanctions on them, then you come out and say you're putting more sanctions. The most sanctions you can put. Then you come out again saying you put the most sanctions you can put. Then you come out again saying you put more sanctions. Like, how? I thought you already done this, Joe Biden. And now we're sanctioning Russia and Iran again? That just, the hypocrisy, the lies, I'm sick and tired of it. I really am. I'm tired of it. Why can't they just tell us the truth? Why can't they just tell us, yeah, we don't like Russia. We want Russia to crumble. So we're doing everything we can to make that happen. No, but instead, we're fighting for democracy, y'all. No, we're not. We are not. Stop lying. Stop being hypocritical. Stop it with all this garbage. I don't know why we're involved in this. Seriously. I wish we would keep our fingers out of stuff like this. The leader of the free world, the United States, we're not supposed to be the world police, for crying out loud. If we're going to be leaders in the free world, we need to send negotiators over there to go negotiate peace whenever wars like this break out. That's foreign policy. All we're doing now is conducting war by proxy. That's not what the leader of the world should be doing. The leader of the free world should not be conducting war through proxies. I'm sorry. We should be conducting peace through negotiations, for crying out loud. Keep our army strong. Peace through strength, for crying out loud. Yeah, we've got a very strong army, so don't screw with us. But hang on, we'll send in some negotiators to go work out any disputes that you may have with your neighbors or whoever. Why do we not do that? It's crazy to me that these people they'll lie, they'll cheat, and they'll steal to get more funding for the military-industrial complex to fund whatever the hell, because that's who pays them, I guess. That's the military-industrial complex has a very strong lobby arm in Washington, D.C. That is apparent through all of this garbage. But I think I've rambled on for long enough on this one. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments. That's all I got. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. And stay legitical. Peace.